Hi everybody, Brendan here with another edition of This Month in Punk Rock History. The punk rock calendar, and every other calendar, says it's December, and that means celebrating your gift-giving holiday of choice. So regardless of whether you celebrate Hanukkah, Christmas, Saturnalia, Festivus, or Life Day, join me for a celebration of punk rock Christmas music. But first, as always, I want to take a moment to offer a quick shout-out to my host, Sweet Jimmy Network. Check out previous editions of This Month in Punk Rock History, as well as 60-second reviews, greetings, and an all-new Tales from the Thrift. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and start fights in the comments section. Now, let's get on to it.
Santa Claus, the man, the myth, the slam dancer.
Christmas music first appeared as early as the 4th century with church hymns. The modern music industry started to cash in on Christmas when Christmas movies became popular in the 40s and 50s, and Elvis Presley's cleverly titled Christmas album was the first big rock and roll Christmas album. By 1963, Billboard magazine gave Christmas music its own chart, essentially defining it as a genre. Now let's talk about punk rock.
What about punk rock? Ha 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 ha!
In the mid-70s, punk emerged pretty much simultaneously in the US, UK, Europe, and Australia. While the specific themes and genre definitions varied, it was universally the music of rebellion. It was a rejection of mainstream culture. So it's no wonder the Ramones, the Damned, the Saints, and the Stinky Toys weren't so quick to jump on the Christmas bandwagon. But punk created its own bandwagon. As the new sound struggled to find its footing, punk was a label broadly applied, especially in the music press. Pretty much anything that wasn't Queen or Pink Floyd at the time was called punk. At the same time, many groups reinvented themselves or formed, not so much as an expression of rebellion, but as a means to cash in on a phenomenon. And so we arrive at some of the earliest punk rock Christmas songs. For argument's sake, let's call 1974 the birth year of punk. By 76, the novelty groups had invaded the scene. Probably the first two entries into the Christmas catalog of punk music come from two bands, both novelty acts. One called the Ravers, and the other one, Matt Black and the Doodlebugs. I'm not sure which came first, but we're going to go with the Ravers. You've probably heard the Ravers song, It's Gonna Be a Punk Rock Christmas. It's been making its rounds on the web forever, and it's often misattributed to the Sex Pistols. This is likely due to the poor Johnny Rotten impersonation on vocals. The Ravers were a reformed version of American band Daddy Maxfield, who were best known for... Okay, they were virtually unknown. The song was written by Rhino Records CEO Harold Bronson, and it name-checks the Sex Pistols, Stranglers, Johnny Ramone, The Damned, and Eddie and the Hot Rods, as well as invoking several punk cliches such as safety pins and random acts of violence. The Ravers were assembled for this recording and disassembled soon after. Next on the non-sequential list is Matt Black and the Doodlebugs with Punky Xmas. This single is little more than a footnote in punk history and is typically only mentioned in list form along with other punksploitation tunes. For reasons unknown, in 2007, Mr. Black hired a cameraman to document the aged punk playing guitar and harassing mall patrons for a video for this song. According to the unsourced YouTube comments, Black became some sort of actor, but I wasn't about to chase down every Matt Black in IMDb. If you know more, please feel free to comment down below. As I said earlier, the Ravers and the Doodlebugs weren't real bands. They only put out these Christmas records. They never toured. They never did anything else. They were novelty for the sake of novelty and presumably cash. The next novelty band was a real band first. Remember how last month I talked about how the Young Aborigines were a serious band and then they shuffled their lineup as a joke to become the Beastie Boys? This is kind of like that. Formed in 1976, the Boys were part of the first wave of UK punk. Along with Generation X, they were formed from the split of London SS, and while the Pistols were between record contracts, the Boys were the only ones to be signed. In 1977, they swapped the B and the Y in their name to become the Yobs for the first ever Christmas single by a legit punk band. The Yobs cover of Chuck Berry's Run Rudolph Run was released on November 27, 1977. They followed it up the following year with their rendition of Silent Night, and continued even after the dissolution of the Boys to reunite every year for a punk Christmas record until 1981. Silent Night is the main contender for the first American punk Christmas single. The Dickies released their version of the traditional Christmas hymn in December 1978 as their fourth single, which peaked at number 47 on the UK charts. The sole 1979 entry comes from the Yobs again. For more information about the Yobs, skip back about 60 seconds in this video. Technically, Stiff Little Fingers could have a listing in 79 as that's when they sang White Christmas in concert, but it wasn't released until 1980. Also in 1980, The Damned declared there ain't no Sanity Claus, and the Yobs put out their first full-length LP. In 1981, even the anti-capitalists jumped on the Christmas bandwagon. Now, what UK anarcho-punk band would you vote least likely to release a Christmas single? Yes, that's right. In 1981, Creative Recording and Sound Services, note the initials, released their promotional single, Merry Christmas. The single is comprised of one long medley of Crass songs played on a toy keyboard. Name all the songs and win. First prize was bath salts, not that kind. Second prize was one exploited single. Third prize was two exploited singles. And if Christmas is good enough for the anarchists to cash in on, why not the skinheads? Perhaps the first Oi Christmas record is 1981's Secret Records compilation EP, Bollocks to Christmas, which features the Foreskins, Max Splodge, The Business, and the Gonads. Meanwhile, in the USA, Fear released the single Fuck Christmas, the B-side to which was Christmas, a censored version for the radio. As we move into the 80s, the list blows up a bit, so here are some highlights. In 1982, Susie and the Banshees covered a traditional French carol, the name of which I won't even attempt. In 1987, the Descendants sang about a strange teenage love in Christmas Vacation. In 1988, the Pogues may or may not have settled a bet with Elvis Costello by releasing Fairy Tale of New York with Kirsty MacColl on vocals. And finally, in 1989, the Ramones, arguably the first punk band ever, hit us with Merry Christmas, I Don't Want to Fight Tonight. I've included as many of these as I could and a few extras on the first ever Today in Punk Rock History playlist on Spotify. So if you're interested, click the link below and maybe I'll do this for future videos. For more tales of the punk rock of old, find me everywhere via tiprh.start.page. For this month in punk rock history, I'm Brendan McCabe. Join me right here next month when we look at BBC Radio 1 DJ John Peel and his influence on the early UK scene.